And welcome back to the end of Act 1 of Downbelow Adventure Design. We still haven't named this adventure, but yesterday we covered the narrative side of Scene 3, the fight or flight. Today I'm going to hand this over to Ian, and he is going to talk about the mechanical aspects of Scene 3 in roughly 5 minutes-ish or so.
In case you have just jumped in on this series of videos, I'm Ian.
I'm Steve.
And we are designing an RPG called Downbelow. It is a cyberpunk dystopian sci-fi setting with a system that is narrative and resource-based with no random elements, no dice, despite my shirt.
So, let's talk about the mechanical considerations and things that you're going to throw at players in Scene 3 to close out Act 1, or if running as a one-shot, to close out the story.
So closing out the climactic scene of an adventure is really an important thing to consider in your design of anything that you run for this game. This is the point where the tension is going to be highest, because you have two basic possible scenarios. Either the players have already used up most or all of their successes, and so they are in a situation where they're going to run up against challenges that they are guaranteed to fail in the climactic scene. Or you're going to have players who have failed at some things going into this, and so they're going to have a bunch of successes charged up because their traits are several of them going to be ready, if not most of them. Probably not all of them, because if they have all of their traits ready by the end of the session, that would be very strange. It's possible, but just know that it's not typical. So they need, at this point, to be feeling that tension, and they probably will. So you have to plan for two possible divergent scenarios. Either they will succeed with flying colors, or they will fail. There is the third scenario of they will squeak by the skin of their teeth, but since it's the climactic scene, that's honestly going to feel like succeeding with flying colors in a lot of ways, because it's going to be epic and tense, and they're going to finally pull it out. And if they have the traits ready to succeed with flying colors, then they're going to have failed at a bunch of things previously. They're going to be in a bad situation to start with, and so it's going to feel like they're the underdogs fighting their way back up.
As a quick aside, something that we're going to recap for people who are just joining us, the way that we handle successes and failures is that each character has a certain number of traits.
Usually 10.
Each trait can be used to succeed at any given task, though with consequences.
And the stakes at hand in the task are determined by the story. So
to recharge your traits once used, you have to take a failure, and with it, the consequences for that failure. So when we talk about coming in fully charged up, they're coming in fully charged up, but also laboring under any consequences they have accrued.
So, for example, you might have 8 of your 10 traits available going into the climactic scene, but you start off in handcuffs and a hood in the back of an armored police van.
Alternately, you might start off going in under your own power, going for a shootout, but earlier in the game you had taken a failure in a physical thing. You are wounded. If you take another wounded condition, you are dead, for instance.
As a possibility. The stages of wounding are something that we have a little bit written on in our rules document that Patreon patrons have access to. So, some specifics for success and failure. If your players succeed at this climactic scene, they get exactly the denouement they want out of it. If they're trying to flee, they get off the island or into long-term hiding or whatever it was they were looking for their flee option. Maybe not exactly, depending on whether there were any failures along the way in the scene, but basically they will get it. If they were looking to fight, they will get the information they were fighting for. They may get it public if that's what they were trying to do. They may successfully get revenge on the people who smeared them by blowing away the people who did the identity laundering on them. whatever it was they're fighting for, they will basically get that denouement. So you have to be prepared for them to get that denouement in a way that in a one-shot doesn't totally break the immersion in the setting. You need to make it still look like their failures mattered leading up to this, and you need to still make them, basically have some issues to deal with one way or the other, even though they got what they wanted.
In other words, they're going to get exactly what they want, accounting for incurred consequences. The consequences do not magically go away when they succeed.
And accounting for setting assumptions, like they're not going to bring the whole system tumbling down. So we mentioned a little bit about they might go to the media last time. If they get their information and go to the media with it, they create enough of a media stink to get themselves clear, but it's going to die down, and the next scandal's going to come along, and the system's not going to change all that much. The abductions are probably even going to still be happening, which, in a one-shot, is a trailing thread of, oh, well, you didn't get everything and a bag of chips. In a continuing campaign, it might be something they continue trying to fight for, because they might also still have people on their tail because of this. Especially because people who make a stink in the media are liabilities to a corporation like Biodynamics.
So we talked about the success.
So failure looks, well, how do you end a one-shot on a failure? Ending Act 1 of a campaign on failure is actually really easy, because that just says you set up a cliffhanger, bad stuff is happening, and we'll see you next time!
Yep.
But you can't do a cliffhanger in a one-shot. That's not very satisfying.
And while there's some games out there that really encourage bad ends in a one-shot, I'm looking at Call of Cthulhu, you've got some very memorable failure conditions there. This might not be what you're going for.
Well, there's two big options, and it depends on how you want to run it. Bad end is actually one of them. It's possible that your characters end up dead. I mean, if they get into a firefight and fail, they may well end up dead. And then you've got basically the Breaking Bad ending, where, spoiler alert, sorry, but I feel like
people die.
There's a gunfight where lots of people die at the end of that show. I won't say specifically who, because I'm actually not entirely clear specifically who, because I haven't actually watched it. I've just seen the other spoilers on the internet.
The point is, it's entirely possible to have the Hamlet end, where everybody's dead.
Yeah, it could be a tragedy, everybody dies. It could be a tragedy, they actually do get abducted and used for medical research, in which case you can use something we mentioned in the interstitial scenes before, with the other side, and you can focus on the families that turn out happy because of the success of this research later, with the little bittersweet of, and your characters were never allowed to leave the containment facility because this story could never be allowed to come to light.
Or possible you could pick up later, if it's a, like, not a convention one-shot, but a group one-shot, you could pick up with escaping the medical facility later.
Also possible, because one-shots can turn into more in the future. You can also have failure mean that the characters end up, instead of in the bad situation that was originally intended for them, they could end up actually going to a regular prison camp. Which there are some interesting prison camps that we're going to detail later that have an interesting place in the Chinese economy and the world that we're setting up. But that's not for today. They could end up in debt to some criminal and stuck in the Downbelow economy. There's a lot of ways that you could have a denouement that is not a complete bad end, but does basically end up with them still screwed, just in a different way, by them having an ending that basically they fail at getting what they were trying to do. So that is it for this adventure design, and we hope that you will join us next time. We may continue to more of this campaign. We may start with a new thing. We'll let you know next time.
If you have specific things you'd like to see, please let us know in the comments below or on our Patreon page.
Thank you, as always, for watching.